story, but that I want to pivot off of what you just told us. Mark, what would have happened if somebody would have said that in your household?
Dang, wow. First of all, before I even get into the color issue, I mean, I have to go back into my own childhood and trying to understand this paradigm of race that's constructed. Let's just say in the West, because I've been living in Brazil for almost 8 years, and that's a whole nother animal. But I just remember distinctly, I was about 8 years old, and up until that point, something that I kind of believed that my mother was white because she had fair skin. So I'm not going to go down the path of talking about Brazil, but one of the things that I noticed, there's a drastic difference between here and there, is that because you had this whitening ideal here, you have a lot of people who would look like my mother here, and they would actually try to either pass as white, or nobody told them that they weren't like white. So they'll grow up thinking that they're white until somebody says, well, you're not exactly white. So when I go into the whole color thing, this is something that I had to learn in my own family, because my mother has like a full range of skin colors in her own family. It's something that I had to understand. Whereas here, people, in trying to avoid blackness, they don't get that conversation in their home saying, look, you may be light skinned, but you're not white. Whereas my mother straightened me out on that day. I'll distinctly remember, all of y'all remember Northland. We was at Northland shopping mall one night, me, her, and my father. My father was about my skin complexion. And I'm sitting across the table and I'm looking at the two of them like, how come my father is black and how come you're white? And they both just started laughing. And she says, Mark, I'm not white. She had to explain the whole thing to me. Then I started looking around like, wow, we have this whole range of skin complexions in our community. And this is how race plays out in the United States. And it's something that you have to learn, because if you're going to just base it on how a child thinks, like your mother and my mother, we look at these people and think that they're white. And it's like, no, that's not quite how it works in the United States. But the other thing I wanted to follow up on, because listening to Kurt's story, that's intriguing, because I don't really have those type of people in my family, but I distinctly remember my first, let's say, introduction to this issue of race and our origins. I mean, I know a lot of us saw Roots when we were little kids, and I'm like, that's how we got here? Now, how come nobody told me this, right? And this is really not a conversation that I really had in my house. I remember my mother took me when I was a little kid. There was a play called Selma, based on one of the, MLK's marches from, the 60s or whatever. But everything that I came to learn is stuff that I had to learn on my own, because this wasn't really a conversation that we had in the house.
T-Real, I don't want to mess up the flow. T-Real, what about you? In your household, if someone would have said something about the dark-skinned person not being as pretty as the light-skinned person, how would that shake out?
Dark skin not as pretty as the light skin, or vice versa?
That the dark-skinned person isn't as pretty as the light-skinned person.
Yeah, so it would have been more of a psychological question or a response. So it would be me to, what makes you say that? And less of educating, is first understanding why I said something. Why do you think that? Or what made you say that? And then I'm sit there and I explain, and then it would go into, that's not how it works, and it would be explained as far as they're also black, and it's not I don't know. It's hard for me to put myself in that situation, because I never had that thought process. Now, I did kind of have more of I like the more straight hair, or more curly hair, not super curls, but just kind of wavy and more of the Latin descent type of tip I was on for a minute. But I don't know. I really don't. I don't think it would be the 5-hour lecture that he might have brought out. Not in that case, but I think it was always, I was always raised to love who I am as a black man, and obviously my mother being more on the lighter skin side and my father being more on the darker skin side, and it was just, that's how it is. Wasn't a matter of kind of me having blurred lines about that. Even my grandmother being even lighter, you know, I was always understanding of the different shades. So,
Well, full disclosure, your grandmother is my mother, and let me give you some history on how your grandmother ended up being so light.
yeah.
You know, that's why I had to put a pivot right there in that story, because it reminded me of how it was in my household. In my house, if that statement would have been made, if someone would have said that the dark-skinned person maybe I like the light-skinned person, but not the dark-skinned person, or I like the white one, and the white girl looked far better than the black girl, whatever, it would have been like, yeah, see, you know, I'm sure, you know.
Damn.
That's what I saw. You know, my dad didn't make any bones about saying that was one of the reasons on why he married my mom, was because, one, she was light and he didn't want to have kids as dark as him and her hair. And so that was something that was I'm not gonna say instilled, but he wasn't shy about it, wasn't holding us up on that. And so I think down through the years, although it may have been never anything that was directly talked about anymore, you know, it's not like we would have been watching TV and be like, hey, you see that white girl is far better than that black girl. That wouldn't have needed to be said, but because it had been said, and because I think in just all of our interactions, it was generally reinforced, I didn't even have to really think about, like T-Real said, working through that thought process of why do I feel that way? Again, that didn't happen until probably, you know, again, we go to early 90s and folks in hip hop started saying, why you with that cave chick? I'll put that nicely. Why you with that cave chick? Because you brothers remember the days when you walking around with a white girl and brothers like, man, where you get her from? And then it like changed overnight, you know, OJ, well, actually even before OJ, but hip hop had a big role in that. But, and also I think it's really interesting, all of us have light-skinned moms. And so that is interesting in and of itself. But Kurt, I'm gonna go back to you now. Pick up from where you left off with that story, because I like where you were going with that. I think we're gonna have some other places we can pivot up. So he got the 5-hour lecture, which is what my kids get today from me. So what? Continue with that.
So well, to give a description, my mom is like Mariah Carey black. My aunt looks like Rosie Perez. I have one aunt that's like Lupita Nyong'o complexion. So like they range really from across my aunts and uncles, like really across the spectrum. So, but I can remember. So my mom, I think, was overcompensating because my mom probably could have passed.
I was going to ask you, did she ever talk about that at all? About passing?
My mom had been in situations where people thought she was white and said some stuff, and they regretted that they said some stuff. Because my mom would like go off, like she didn't play that at all.
Wow.
And like even in the 70s, my mom was like, "You're doing this because we're black and you're racist, and I'm not having it." And yeah, she was not having it. So,
what made your mom like that? Do you know?
Probably my grandfather. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened to my grandfather, but something happened, and I don't know if it happened with his father, but he was, other people were not high on his list at all for anything, and you needed to stay away from them. You could not trust them.
Wow.
So they were out to get you.
So if it also sounds like whatever happened with your grandfather, he didn't stay silent. He told the story to the rest of the family. So it wasn't like you said, name change, we just never gonna talk about it again. He still told that legacy. Good.
We still don't know exactly the reason why. And I didn't know until I was an adult that wasn't our last name.
Wow.
So my cousin went to do like a family tree, family history, and we call my oldest uncle JC because his name is Joseph Carruthers, and everybody else's name is Jones, and Carruthers is our real last name.
Dang.
So I didn't know that's why people called him JC, but that's why. So yeah, we still don't. I don't know. Maybe my oldest uncle knows, which I was supposed to come when I was coming to Vegas, but I was gonna see him, but that didn't happen.
I mean, I think another quick point on that, it's good to get those stories from family while we can.
Yeah.
That's deep, man. And your story.
Yeah, and there's no white girls ever. Ever. Like my nephew only dates white girls, and he stopped coming to family things. He got roasted so hard. Like,
what?
Yeah, yes.
Wow.
So he just came back to Christmas last year. He had dipped out for about 5 years.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Man, that's a story I need to follow up on right there.
You know? Is that up your alley, Mark?
Well, let me just, because let me just piggyback on what he said.